Grooming gangs, folks, grooming gangs. That's the big news at the moment. It's huge. I mean, I've covered it for the last 3 or 4 days. Today I'm coming at it from a different angle altogether. Please bear with me. Now, I'm not the cleverest soul in the world. I don't profess to be. I don't know as much about grooming gangs as some of you people do that'll be watching this. So wherever I'm wrong, please feel free to put me right. I've got no problem with that at all. But I heard something this morning on GMB. You may or may not have heard it yourself. In a 2015 inquiry, it was brought up that the major perpetrators of sexual abuse with our young children, young white children, is white males. That's right, white males, not Pakistani Muslims. That's what it said. In fact, it went on to say in 2010, I think there was, I wrote it down, let me make sure I've got it right. There was a group of men, did it say how many men? It didn't. There was a group of men, I think it was 5 or 6 men and 1 woman that was jailed for abusing 30 children in Cornwall. And what they're saying is it didn't get as much coverage as anything to do with Pakistani Muslims. And you look at that and you think, well, that's not right, that doesn't seem right. That's what you initially think. But then you take it in a wider picture and a greater context. Over the years, and I mean years and years and years now, as I said, I think in yesterday's message, history tells us that men, historically, have abused women and children. They have. Not all men do it, obviously, but many, many men do. In this country, in Great Britain, in England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, there's going to be more white males than any other persuasion. So it stands to reason the bigger percentage is white. So if folk are abusing young children, there's every chance there's going to be more white folk doing it. And don't get me wrong, many of the white folk doing these kind of things may not be British. They may be Europeans, they might be over here, and the abuse might be to do with trafficking and all sorts of things. And we know there's loads and loads of gangs from Europe that have come over here and trafficked children and abused them at the same time. Why, you ask to yourself, would the white gangs and the white people not have the same high profile as the Pakistani Muslims? Why at this moment in time are we fixated on Pakistani Muslims and not whites? Well, here's my take on it, and I might be wrong. You know, as I say, feel free to jump in if I am wrong. I don't agree with any male of any age abusing women and especially children. I don't. I really, really don't. I've covered all kinds of things on here. When I've done stuff with Pakistani Muslims over the last 3, 4, 5 months, I've had some people on defending them, and they've mainly been of Asian origin, defending themselves and saying, what about the white people? What about this? These loads goes on. And I've always said, look, I know there is. Anytime I read anything in the press that I think's horrific, whether it's carried out by a white person, a black person, or anything in between, I report on it. But the reason there's more happening now with Pakistani Muslims is it's much more widely talked about, it's much more in the press. It has been for many a year. We know all our authorities have let down these young children in your Rochdales and your Telfords and the like. We know they've turned blind eyes, and we know a big problem in power, folks in power, as in running the country, police, social services. Everybody's worried about racism. Everybody worries about tagging anything or anybody. So to say Asian or Pakistani or Muslim gets folk a bad name, so they won't do any of that. And loads of backs have been turned. What I will say is this. This is what I look at. What did I say before? Was it Cornwall? I don't want to get it wrong. I'm pretty sure I said Cornwall. In Cornwall, when them 5 or 6 blokes were arrested, and that woman, they were targeting young white children. Now, it might not have got the press that the same would have been given for Pakistani Muslims. It may not have done. But, still, those white folk were all jailed. I'm sure it was in the press, and the papers were all over the press what had been going on. I'm sure as soon as the police and the authorities realised what they'd been doing with children, they were arrested almost probably straight away, they were tried pretty quickly and banged up pretty quickly. That's what will have happened. What had happened in the same time frame in your Rochdales and your Telfords, you've had mothers and fathers talking to social services and the police about their children, and people have turned blind eyes. People have let it keep happening. There's been some authorities thinking, well, it's only white girls from trash backgrounds, council estates, we're not worried about them. Or it's only white girls from council estates who have got themselves mixed up in drink and drugs and whatever else. They don't care, so why would she? They never thought the same with the children in Cornwall. They'll have arrested the perpetrators straight away. They won't probably have called them white groomers because they'd had no need to, because primarily everything and everybody is white. But they wouldn't have had a problem saying the word white. It wouldn't have been a problem. They don't have a problem because to term them white isn't racist, especially if you're white police or white politician. But to term somebody Pakistani or Muslim seems to be an issue, and why I don't know. Now the thing is this, as I say, through the ages, people of all skin colours have targeted women and children. They do it throughout the world now. It's happening everywhere. We're concerned about these things happening on our doorstep in this country because we're from this country. But over the years, as gangs have been caught, be them white, be them British, be them European, they've been caught quickly, they've been arrested quickly, probably tried and jailed pretty quickly. They've followed due process. They've done what you would normally do with anybody carrying out awful crimes. But again, what I'll reiterate is what's happened with the Pakistani Muslims is they've not been arrested. Sometimes they've let things fester for year upon year upon year. And then when they have been arrested, they've been promised hard sentences and often got off lightly. They've been told they're going to be deported. They haven't been deported because they've appealed it with legal aid. And everybody's scared of sticking the boot in, if you like, to these Asian groomers because they are Asian, because they are Pakistani or Muslims. Everybody's frightened to death. Everybody's wondering what they should and shouldn't do and what they should and shouldn't say. With the white groomers, there's no worries at all. They just bang them up, and that's what they do. But the other thing I will say is this. We're talking white young children who are being groomed. Nearly always females, probably some males, but in the main, females. Let's go with white with the children, because primarily they are. Let's say white people have been doing it from time to time, and they have, and they've been banged up and whatever else. White people, white children. In your Rochdales and your Telfords and other places like ilk, I think Oxford and others have been mentioned, it's white children, Pakistani Muslims carrying out these crimes. The Pakistani Muslims, from what I gather, from what I read, from what I hear, from what my viewers tell me, think these white girls are trash. They're no good. They're worth nothing. English people are worth nothing. They're a better race than us. They're better people than us. And they should be treated as such, as trash. That's how they should be treated. They're even told if they treat the white children like this and so on and so forth, the more that they do, the better they get on in life and the better they get on in later life. Because they're treating the white trash as they should be treated. Now the thing is, as I've said in the past, we're not hearing about Pakistani Muslims doing the same to gangs of Pakistani girls. We're not hearing that at all. Maybe that happens and we don't hear it because they're all frightened to death and it's covered up. I doubt it very much. I know in many households, women and children are treated badly, as they are in many parts of the world. They're more looked at as a second or third class citizen than white folk are in White Britain. Women and children are generally treated better in Britain than in many other countries. I know often in Pakistani and Asian households, you know, there's arranged marriages, there's this, there's that. It's a whole different ball game. You know, you go to the Far Eastern place or you go to the Asian countries and places like that, and you know the women are very, very much downtrodden. It's not the same in this country. But what I'm getting at is the Muslim men, the Pakistani Muslim men, are turning on our young white girls. They're not doing it the same to their own girls. So there's an element of racism there. They're not doing it to their own people. In England, when it's happening with white men doing it to white young girls, it's the same people. I would suggest if gangs of white men were doing these things to grooming Pakistani girls, there'd be a massive, massive, massive outcry in the Pakistani community. The outcry would be unbelievable. But it's never going to happen, because it doesn't happen, because it's not something that is done. And the reason I think there's such a massive outcry with the Pakistani Muslim men at the moment is because it's just happening everywhere. I read something else today where I think one retired high up police officer is saying it's happening all over the country still. Absolutely all over the country. And we're nowhere near fixing the problem. And it's all Pakistani Muslim men doing it to young white British girls. It's happening everywhere. And it probably is, and we're going nowhere. And that, at the moment, for my money, is why there's such a big thing in the press and it's being targeted and everything else. So my take from this is, how do I feel about white men doing the same to white young British children? I feel every bit as bad. Anybody that abuses children should be locked up in jail and throw away the key. Never let them out for my money. Absolutely never let them out. The white males, they can't deport the white males if they've been born here, because sadly they're British. They're still scum, but they're British scum. If they're Pakistani Muslim men, they should serve the same kind of jail terms as white men should, but then they should be deported. If they weren't born over here, then send them back to from whence they came. They shouldn't be over here. We've got enough, as I've just highlighted earlier, with white British men. We don't need people from all other countries coming into our country and doing it, so get rid of them. But I think that is the issue here. It isn't the issue of, it's not a case of only Pakistani Muslim men are doing this to our children. It's happening throughout the country with all colours of men doing it to children. But it's highlighted more because it's Pakistani doing it to white, whereas white aren't doing it to Pakistani. That's the second thing. But more than that is, they believe the white are scum, they're second class, and they deserve it. The white men are doing it to white children because they're just sexual predators. They are scum. They don't get a pat on the back from the religion and from the folk higher up saying you're doing a good job there. Carry on doing that to the white kiddies. They don't get that at all. But I think with many Pakistani Muslims, it's almost like a badge of honour. They're doing what they're told to do, what the religion tells them is right to do, and that in itself can't be right, which is why it's got to be stamped out. Have I rambled on a bit? I think I probably have. But have I made some decent points? I hope I have. If I haven't, then I'm sorry. If I've offended anybody, I'm sorry, but I'm not really sorry because I believe what I've said. But it's just based on something I heard earlier, and I was just surprised to hear that there's more white men doing it than Pakistani men. Or there has been over the years. But then again, I think about it, I think, well, there's perverts everywhere, so that I do believe. And many of those white men won't be British, say they'll be European that have come over and trafficking kids and abusing kids. That's been going on for years and years, sadly. The difference is, when Polish gangs come and do that over here, or Albanian gangs, or whatever else it may be, we name them straight away, and we don't have an issue. And we lock them up quickly. We try them quickly and lock them up. We don't tend to turn a blind eye to these gangs. But over the last 15 or 20 years, we've turned many, many, many blind eyes to Pakistani Muslims, and that in itself has got to be wrong. And I think that's why the inquiries are being called for, and that's why it's such a hot potato at the moment. As I say, am I right? I don't know. You tell me. But I think I am. I know I've gone round in circles a bit and rabbited on. I do apologise.